and welcome back to Cooking the Books with me, Gilly Smith, the podcast which takes us through 4 food moments from the books of our favourite food writers, but not this week. In an extra special episode, we're with one of the 3 judges of this year's Fortnum and Mason Awards, Angela Clutton, to peek behind the process.
It was really hard, really hard. You always hear judges, don't you, in awards things say, oh, well, it was very difficult and everybody deserved to win. And obviously sometimes that's kind of not true. It could not be more true about how difficult a wrangle it was to get to where we got to.
Now, by the time you hear this, the glitz and the glamour of these Oscars of the food world will be over for another year. The mass of talent in the room will be nursing their hangovers, and the winners will be stroking their crowns. And as one of the nominees, recording this before the big night, Cooking the Books will, whatever the outcome, be basking in the glory of the biggest food night of the year. I began by asking Angela how she, along with fellow judges Itamar Sulovitch from Honey & Co and Leyla Kazim from the food programme, felt about being chosen as this year's judges.
I was completely and utterly thrilled to be asked. And I know that all the other judges felt the same way because we all said it to each other. It was and is a real honour to do it because these awards, they are huge and they make such a difference. I am incredibly fortunate to say that I have one. And I know how it feels emotionally to have that validation, to have a group of your peers look at your work, judge it, and think well of it. It is because you put so much into doing a book, and it is enormously appreciated. And then it does make a real difference moving forward to how you're seen, how the industry sees you, the success of your books. So to then be asked to be part of that is just a joy and a complete privilege.
Yeah.
And really fun too, actually.
Yes, I imagine. I keep saying, can I be a judge, please? But then, of course, I can't because I want Cooking the Books to win. You can't have it all. Now, tell me what you were looking for. So, Itamar from Honey & Co and Leyla Kazim from the food programme, and you are all come from very different worlds. You're very much a writer. Itamar's very much a chef. Leyla's very much a presenter. What were you all looking for?
Those 3 slightly different takes you just picked on, Gilly, were really obvious in the judging room. We all came with those very different angles on it. I hadn't really thought about that. As ever, you're so insightful, you'd kind of put your finger on it. But I hadn't really thought, I'm going to come at it from the words, aren't I? I'm going to look for that structure and that flow and the way you tell a story. Itamar, he was first and foremost looking at the food. He wanted, what was it going to be like on the plate? And Leyla, she was coming at it in a kind of more maybe an issues way, more of a rounded kind of sense of it. So I do think they picked the judges pretty well not to have people who were crossing over, and it gave those conversations real breadth. I mean, I've got to say, Gilly, this was not easy. There were some real disagreements about it as we went through. There were some things which were kind of like, yeah, absolutely, both in both positive and negative ways. But there were some where it was really hard to find the wrangle through it, and that's when Angela Hartnett comes in.
And what does she say then? Because she is the kind of the word of the Fortnum and Masons. She is chief judge. So, and the Guild of Food Writers shortlist will come out the week after this episode goes out. What does she say is the kind of the essence of the Fortnum and Masons-ness about this set of awards?
It'll be no surprise to you to know that Angela Hartnett runs a very tight ship. There is no messing around, and she will only allow disagreement, argument, procrastination on decision making for a certain length of time before she doesn't wade in with her opinion, because that's not her role. What she does is help us reach the solution that we have to. Because there can't be, we went through, can there be joint winners, all of that, and that's not what they want to do. And so she helps us and enables us to kind of get to a point of everyone feeling okay about, and more than okay, happy and settled about the decision that we've got to. Because if you're not agreeing, you can't. There is no essence of ever wanting to kind of bulldoze over someone else's opinion.
Yeah,
but it takes a real skill to get that. She, and I think the Fortnum and Mason's awards team generally, are very clear that this is about the best in each category, which sounds so obvious, but what that means, I guess, is quite different for different awards and also for different categories within the awards. So, you're looking for real integrity, you're looking for a clear voice, you're looking for work which really, really stands out. We all know Fortnum and Mason, it stands out as being so emphatically what it is. And so often that is about being the best, but it's the best with integrity. And that, I feel, is what we were striving for in each of these awards.
Yeah. Well, let's start going through the first category. So, Best Food Book. And the nominations were Of Cabbages and Kimchi, A Practical Guide to the World of Fermented Foods by James Reed. Welcome to Our Table, A Celebration of What Children Eat Everywhere by Laura Mucha and Ed Smith. And the winner, Invitation to a Banquet, The Story of Chinese Food by Fuchsia Domnot, which I'm reading at the moment. And I have to say, wow. I mean, really, wow. Was it simply that Fuchsia's book was just so brilliant compared to every other book? I mean, what was the conversation about that one being the winner?
Those three books, they couldn't be more different from each other. Yeah. That made it so exciting, but really hard as well. I'm so happy that those three are on the shortlist because they are so different. I think it is wonderful that Ed and Laura's book for Kids, is there. But you just look at it simply in terms of scale to Fuchsia's book, the one that won, and they are clearly different. So there does come a thing of, are we really comparing apples and apples? And those conversations are hard. James's book, different from the other two again. And I remember Leyla kind of dancing around the judging table, holding up James's book and the gorgeous illustrations of it. And we were really kind of getting into all of them and why we love them. But I have to say, Fuchsia's did completely stand out. It's huge. You don't win an award for writing the biggest book, but it is huge and deeply impressive. It feels like the book that she's been building up to. She knows this work so well. She knows this world so well. She knows this food so well. She knows the culture so well. It all comes across. It could be a daunting read. It absolutely isn't. It is joyous and insightful. I read it a little while ago, before I even knew that I was judging, and I fell in love with it. And I found it such an exciting read, and I learned so much from it, and I enjoyed the ride so much. I feel that all the judges felt similarly. There were a lot of books of value in this category, and particularly obviously the other shortlistees, but Fuchsia's book, it was an enormously worthy winner.
Yeah, and with somebody of her pedigree, she is the only person who covers Chinese food in this way. She speaks fluent Mandarin. She really knows her subject. She's been doing it for 30 years or so. Does that influence you?
Oh, I can say definitely we were judging the books on the table, the books in our hands. We weren't looking at what other work people had done coming up to it. I don't think... Well, we weren't doing that, and I can only imagine we weren't doing that because we didn't feel that was the right thing to do. You are judging the author as well because they wrote the book, but you're not looking at their past endeavours to reach that point. But I felt it was wonderful for Fuchsia to be doing something which wasn't recipe-led, and so many of others have been.
Absolutely. I mean, debut food book, in which case must make it much easier. The nominees are Food of the Cods. What a great title. How Fish and Chips Made Britain by Daniel Gray, and Meddlers, Growing and Cooking by James Stewart, and of course the winner, Ultra Processed People by Chris Van Tullochen. A clear winner?
There was a lot of chat about this one. Again, very, very, very different books from each other. Maybe that's a running theme on all of these. That the three, they're not similar books in any way. Meddlers is a sort of a real kind of nerd fest, and I do like a nerdy book, but it's a real kind of nerd fest about the very particular, slightly unusual, lesser known fruit. Food of the Cods is very, very different, again from Chris's book, but it was, although there was a bit of conversation about it, it was the book which we all felt most strongly. It had real cut through. It was really making a difference. It had something very clear to say and was saying it very well. It was very well crafted. It's very easy for those books to sometimes get lost in their own arguments, but we felt that Ultra Processed People it knew what it wanted to say, and it set its stall out brilliantly, and it really achieved it, and it's really kind of made a difference. And so for that as a debut book, with a debut book, you were looking for someone who is has a clear voice, is finding their voice, but is well on their way to knowing who they are as a writer or as a food expert, and the message they want to kind of communicate to the public. Chris is achieving that extraordinarily well for this debut, and that was really worth rewarding.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that it was his debut, actually.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And, reading it was an absolute page-turner. Even though it's packed with science, it is a real disruptor. I work with a food foundation, and I thought I knew everything there was to know about ultra-processed food, but no. And the fact that he puts his own children on his research, I thought was particularly impressive. We'll never look at Cocoa Pops again in the same way. Best cookery book, the nominees, Comfort and Joy, one of my favourite books of the year, Ravinder Bogle. Frontier, Chef's Celebration of French Cooking by Alex Jackson, both of which have been on the podcast. Ya, Time-Perfected Recipes from Greece's Grandmothers by Anastasia Miari. Love a grandmother's story. And the winner, Gohan. Everyday Japanese Cooking, Memories and Stories from My Family's Kitchen by Amiko Davies. Also been on Cooking the Books. Wow, what a list. I know what my clear winner was. I said it very, very clearly all over my Instagram just before Christmas. Ravinder's book, I think, was the best book of last year. But what made you choose Amiko's, which I also totally love?
The fact there are 4 in this category, I think, tells the story that we found this an incredibly hard category to judge. And I'm the only judge here representing my little gang, but I think I need to say there was a lot of disagreement about this. These were very respectful but very charged conversations, because every single one of those books not only deserved to be on the shortlist but deserved to win, frankly. Obviously, you can't do that. And it was really hard, genuinely hard to come up. You always hear judges, don't you, in awards things say, oh, well, it was very difficult and everybody deserved to win. And obviously sometimes that's kind of not true. It could not be more true about how difficult a wrangle it was to get to where we got to. That said, I do really hope and believe that we got to a point where all of the judges can feel very contented and happy and pleased with where we got to, but we very much wanted to put all 4 books on the list. Because
as a cookery writer, you really know this category incredibly well. Was there any sense that you felt, no, I know who the winner should be because I know how well they did this? I think we all came in feeling, oh, that's the one that I think, and everyone's going to think that, aren't they? And that just so wasn't it at all. And it was really fascinating to discover what the other judges were loving about books. Yeah, I will say there's a book, I'm not going to say which one, there is a book on this short list that I hadn't even put on my long list. And then I loved discovering which of the other judges had done that and why and what it was that they loved about it. And then I could completely kind of go, yes, okay, I see what I missed here. And I think Leyla and Itamar would say the same, that they rediscovered books, but seeing through the judges' eyes what it was they got. And I think the way the Fortnum Awards work in getting us all in a room for a day, it really gives that space for us to each say why we love something. Yeah. Absolutely. What I love about the fact that Amiko has won is that, she was turned down by Hardy Grant for this book. And she told us about this on when she was on Cooking the Books. And, it was a devastating message back from her publisher, I think she'd done 5 books with them. And they turned her down because they said basically they had other people telling that story on their list.
Oh, my goodness.
I know.
Oh, I'm so pleased. I'm even more pleased.
Exactly. So she went back to Smith Street, who was her original publisher back in Australia, and said, would you do it? And they said, yes, we'd love to. And they did it, and it won. And of course, it's a huge book now. And I'm so pleased for her that she stuck to her guns, because during lockdown, she said that she got really depressed and she nearly pushed it away. And it was only friends who told her, just keep going, keep going. This is who you are, and you have a right to tell that story. So Wonderful, wonderful news.
That is so, so interesting.
Yeah. Debut cookery book. The nominees: The Art of Friday Night Dinner by Eleanor Stafel and The Secret of Cooking by B. Wilson. Not the winner, though. Philip Curry, A New Way to Bake, reimagined recipes for plant-based cakes, bakes and desserts, which I've been reading this morning, and it is phenomenal, I have to say. Applied to be the Queen's baker, but didn't get that one, and is head chef at the Harrods Food Hall. And what he does is really interesting, isn't it? He is doing plant-based baking. He's a disruptor again. 2 disruptors out of a list of 4. Who was the person pushing the disruptors forward?
It was interesting one, this, that Philip's work really stood out as being so different from what anyone else is doing, really. And again, for a debut writer to do that is extraordinary. It is an incredibly beautiful book in the way it's done. And he really conveys that you're not, by going for the kind of plant-based, you're not missing anything. This is not bakes that are going to lack anything by making these substitutions. They very much come across as, we're not doing something instead of, we're doing these things because they are fabulous, and you're going to have wonderful, wonderful bakes as a result. Itamar came along to the judging day with some of the bakes that he'd made, which was really, really nice. It was worth rewarding, not only because for a debut chef to have done this was an extraordinary piece of work, but exactly as you say, Gilly, he's a disruptor because he's doing something genuinely new. Yes, there are lots of plant-based cakes around, but they seldom, to me, seem to be at this level, at the very, very highest end of the work. And that really felt very new, very fresh. Loved the way he told stories about wheat flour and the ingredients kind of going through, to the point I made making earlier about work with real integrity. This absolutely abounded with that. And it was a very, very special book. The others in the category also were much loved by the judges. It's was a tough one, but whilst saying it's tough, I also have to say that Phillips was the clear winner, really.
Gosh, I mean, B. Wilson, she's the winner of everything. Surely she's the queen bee. I mean, how could you knock her off the podium? I mean, that must be hard because, there are certain people who are the leaders in our field, and certainly B. Wilson has held that ground for a long time. When you say it was a clear winner, can you explain what that means?
We just really felt that he was doing something that was fresh and doing it exceptionally well. And I don't mean to sound for a second like I'm dismissing Bee's endeavour in doing that, or indeed Eleanor's. They're on this list for really, really good reasons. They are smashing books. Bee and others who have done so much, and they're so lauded, and very, very rightly so. But when you go into judging them, you have to really try and put that aside. And I think we all did that, because otherwise you just end up giving the same things to the same people, and that's not what it's about. But what Philip was doing in A New Way to Bake felt like a truly new way to bake, and that was worth rewarding.
Absolutely. And it's worth saying that he's taking his plant-based baking to Harrods Food Hall. I mean, not exclusively, but, there's a lot of his work that he's putting in front of people and saying, look, you can think again. He doesn't just not use eggs. He rails against the fact that people are using factory farmed chickens. So it is more. He's an activist. And he disrupts our thinking, and I think that's what I loved about that book, and I can't wait to get him on the show. So next year, your book, Seasoning, is going to be on that list. I have no doubt it is a modern classic, which means that you can't be a judge again, not that you would be asked to do a second turn. I mean, how does it feel when you're going through these lists? So you must have been thinking about your book and thinking, oh gosh, they're saying that about that. I wonder what would they be saying about seasoning.
God, I think you'd drive yourself mad if you did that. Oh, you can't worry too much about those things, can you? And also, it feels like eons away. With seasoning, I'm enjoying the ride of people loving it, cooking it from it, really kind of associating with the message it has about embracing seasonality. And I have loved so much doing these Fortnum and Mason Awards. And when it all comes around for next year, obviously I'll have fingers and toes crossed, but what will be, will be.
Thanks for listening. Do head over to my Substack for some blurry pictures of the night, and I'll see you next week.